Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi, and today we're going to take a look at the new DIOR eyeshadow collection. So they have reformulated their quints. Was that necessary? Let me know what you think. I will definitely give you my thoughts on that. And then they have also come out with new mascaras. They have some color mascaras. They're not actually available for purchase yet here in the US, but coming soon. I can't wait to try the green one in particular. They've also redone their eyeliners. And so these are the DIOR Show On Stage crayons, waterproof kohl eyeliner pencils. I picked up two. I picked up the beige and the green. So we'll have wear test of the eyeshadow and the eye pencils. So we'll talk about those. But let's start off with the packaging on the eyeshadow. So first, this is just the box that it came in. So just so you can see how it differs from the previous version of the box, we have that matte packaging that we've seen on some of the holiday collections, but typically our packaging has been shiny on here. And notice the change in the font, and the palette now has that font on there as well, and that compares to the previous font where our D is going to be larger, and you can see it's just slightly different. So we had a capital D in lowercase letters, whereas now it's going to be all in caps. And the packaging itself, you know, size wise, we are looking at the same size packaging here, so everything will fit in your drawer the same way if that's where you store it. But we do have a couple of key differences. So right now, the old version, we have a little lever to press to open this. It's still click closure. We have utensils that come with it, full-size mirror. Whereas on this one, click closure, but instead we have the little CD to lift up. And again, full-size mirror, utensils. The utensils that come with this, we have a single-sided foam tip applicator and a single-sided brush. So I'll show you those in a minute. This is the one that I picked up. This is 343 Khaki. So we're going to look at the swatches, but first, these are the applicators that came in the older version. So you can see we had dual-ended brush and foam tip applicators. And then our new ones are single-ended. So yeah, personally, I prefer the dual-ended, but I never use them anyway, so it's not that big of a deal to me. Now we're going to swatch this. This is 343 Khaki, and we'll talk about the formula and the palettes and so forth as we are looking at eye swatches. But this palette reminded me a lot of DIOR Jungle, which is one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes. So as you are looking at these shades, you can see that we have kind of this orangey, like a burnt orange matte shade. That's going to be our first shade in the palette. And then we have more of a topper. So this is like a glittery topper. You're not going to get a lot of pigmentation. It does have a slight tint of peach. And then we have, you know, kind of this yellowy chartreuse kind of shade here. That's going to be satin. That's in the middle shade. And then we have this satin, more of a forest green, and it's pretty well balanced, not too much blue in there, but there is a little bit of blue. And then we have this brown, and this is going to be a matte brown. You can see it's kind of, you know, like a mossy brown. But let's take a look at DIOR Jungle as well. This was palette 579. Let me just show you those side by side. So we've got our new one versus Jungle. And the way these are similar, you know, they have different names to show that they are different palettes. However, DIOR has actually, you know, they've kept a lot of the same color stories for their palettes. However, they have changed some of the finishes on them. So if you have like the old version of, let's say like Black Bow or something, you know, you're going to get the same colors in the new formula, but your finishes might be different for some of them. So just something to note there. And Jungle in particular, we have some similarities, but we have some differences as well. So you can see here that this shade, they're very similar, but this is going to be a satin shade. Instead of having a topper, we have more of this like golden champagne metallic. And then we have kind of this deeper brown. It's matte, but you can see it's going to be significantly cooler than that in the Khaki palette. This shade is kind of a cross between these two, and you can see it's a satin. And then this deepest shade here is actually a really deep green, and we definitely have a lot of blue in there. So let's talk a little bit about the formulas while we look at the eye swatches and today's eye look. Now, Dior, the reason that they reformulated them, I don't know exactly if this is the full reason, but what they are saying is, essentially they wanted to add more natural origin ingredients. So they've added corn flour extract, and that's really what they're promoting on here. Now, corn flour extract in cosmetics, we see that in cosmetics, we see it in skincare and things like that. But I'm not really sure what the purpose is of adding it to the eyeshadows. I think it is supposed to help prevent creasing because it's often used with astringent properties. It has some astringent properties. That's why it's often used in like toner and things like that. So my guess is it's supposed to help absorb perhaps or neutralize oil on the eyelids, but I don't really know for sure. I'm not a cosmetic scientist or anything like that. So that is just my particular thought on that. But that is what they're promoting as a major change in these particular palettes. Now, all of the color stories are inspired by iconic pieces in Dior fashion. Again, we're looking at the same or very similar color stories to what we've seen before. Right now, only a couple of the palettes are actually available for purchase. Most of them are ones that you need to, they're still like waitlisted. Now, with the palettes, we have 5 different versions or 5 different finishes that you can have for the shadows: matte, satin, shimmer, metallic, and glitter. So your glitters are your topper shades typically. And yeah, these are supposed to be creamy, comfortable, long-wearing texture that does not migrate into the crease of the eye. And they have mostly natural origin pigments and infused with corn flour extract. And they're supposed to give you a no makeup feel. They do retail for $65, so there has been a slight price increase as well. This is the price that we have been seeing for all of their limited edition palettes that have been coming out. So it's not a huge surprise there. Now, as for the specs on these palettes, they are the same. So both palettes are 7 grams. Again, sometimes the limited edition palettes will have different weights and so forth. But for Jungle, which was in the permanent line as well, that was 7 grams of product. We have all of these shadows made in France, and there's still a 6-month shelf life on these. Now, texturally, when you're feeling these, I personally, I don't know if part of this is in my head or what, but I feel like the older version is just a little bit creamier, a little bit smoother. I have noticed that there is a little bit more powder kickback in the new Khaki palette versus the Jungle palette. However, is it more than other Dior palettes? Not necessarily. So if you have tried a lot of the Dior eyeshadow palettes, there have been a lot that are really, really great. And then there have been a few that have been really bad and some that are just kind of mediocre. And I have to say these are kind of between the mediocre and good ones. So I personally still prefer the really great palettes from Dior in the previous formula over this one in the new formula. And again, there could be hits and misses with the new formula as well. I only picked up this one because I don't want to repeat all of the same color stories. I wish that they had introduced some more new innovative stories. They do have a new palette, but it's not available for purchase yet. And honestly, it's not one that's really appealing to me. So I'm kind of disappointed by that because I was really eager to try these. However, honestly, I think I just prefer the older versions. Now, that's not to say that these are bad. They're definitely a nice eyeshadow formula, but I just don't see anything stellar about them. They went from something that was great a lot of the times to something that's now more average, in my opinion. So still a good formula, but it's not an amazing formula. And unfortunately, now it's more like, okay, if I see a really great color story, maybe I'll pick that up. But there's more consideration that goes into that purchasing process for me now. And as somebody who buys a lot of makeup, that's saying something. Now, as you could see from the eye demos where I compared the Jungle on my left eye and the Khaki on my right eye, so you could kind of really see how the color stories have changed. I feel like everything looked okay, but I did feel like the mattes were just a little bit patchier than those in the original formula. So just something to note there. They weren't quite as smooth. in the new formula. So if you look, and you've seen this during the eye swatches, I compared the new Khaki on my right eye and the original Jungle on my left eye, so you could kind of see the color differences. But you can also note some differences in the formula, particularly with the matte shades. Now, if you have tried those DIOR Velvet palettes that came out, was it in the fall perhaps? You know, those were a slightly different formula. Some people loved them, some people hated them. And I found that, you know, again, it kind of depended on the palette. Some of them were really good, but over time, I still feel like the original ones performed better than the Velvet formula. And those mattes in the Velvets are the mattes in the new formula, I'm pretty sure. So that's the first time that DIOR actually used cornflower extract in the palettes. So the Velvet shadows that came out, I think that they were just kind of testing the waters for the market, testing out how those formulas would be received before they, you know, kind of launched all of these with that new ingredient. So just something to note there. If you tried the DIOR Velvet palettes before and you loved them, then you'll probably really like the new formula. And if you did not like those, then you will not like the new formula. Now, as for the color story of Khaki versus Jungle, we definitely have some key differences in the colors. You can see that the Khaki palette overall is more subdued in color and tone than the Jungle. The Jungle has some deeper, more vibrant colors, and regardless of the actual shade, the finishes also produced a bit more vibrancy to make the colors appear a little bit more pigmented, because in the Jungle, we have more like metallic and satin finishes, which, you know, that added light reflection and so forth is making you see a little bit more of those particular colors, versus here in the Khaki palette where we have a bit more, we've got more matte shades, and they are also a bit more muted. You can see, even like looking at the chartreuse shade in both, they're definitely different colors, but you can see how much lighter and softer in pigmentation the one in Khaki is compared to Jungle. Same thing goes with the green shade. You know, everything's just a little bit lighter and more softly pigmented in general. So just something to note there. That's going to be something some people like, something that other people don't. So let's go ahead and take a look at the eyeliners. So the eyeliners do come with a sharpener. We have, you know, a sponge tip on one end, and we have the actual eyeliner on the other side. So this one here is the shade dark green, and I've used the DIOR eyeliners in the past. I just don't really love them. There were certain ones that were good, but you know, I felt like overall as a formula, they weren't great eyeliners. And their new liquid ones, however, I do like those. So this is the dark green shade. And this is supposed to be a waterproof kohl eyeliner. So I'm testing that out. I'll have a wear update at the end. So definitely take a look at that. Texturally, I have to say, I thought these would be a little bit creamier than they are. So I'm actually really glad I only picked up 2 to start, because I want to wait and see how these perform over time, because I was so disappointed with the Chanel, you know, the kohls that they redid. Those were a favorite before, and then they ruined them. So I also picked up the beige shade for the waterline. So just want to compare that there. And you can see that these are creamy, but they're not as creamy as something like the Victoria Beckham eyeliners, if you're familiar with those. Those are very, very soft, very creamy. Is there tugging on the eyelid when I apply these? No, there's not, but they are really more of in between a regular pencil and a kohl liner. I would have to say, you know, if you're familiar with the Chantecaille eyeliners, those are creamier than these as well. Compared to the redone Chanel, these are a little bit creamier than those. However, those were hit or miss. Certain shades of that actually worked out very well. So, you know, it would be more in line with some of the creamier ones there. But just something to note there. So definitely testing these right now. We'll have that wear update. But I think they're okay. They're just right off the bat, you know, with first impressions are they're a like, not a love. So we'll see. I'll definitely update you guys on those at the end of the month when I do the May repurchase review. But let's go ahead and do just a few color comparisons here. All right, let's start off with one of the Chanel Stylo Yo waterproof pencils. This is in 46 Vert Emeraude. And this is not a kohl pencil, so it's not going to be as creamy. This is the Chanel. You can see it has a little bit more blue in there. Really pretty shade. There is a little bit of shimmer in this one. This is Black Forest from Chantecaille. Oh, I guess I broke my tip there. You can see this is going to be much creamier in general. I really love the Chantecaille eyeliners. You can see this also has a bit more blue in it as well. It's very creamy. These stay really well. Are they like perfect for the waterline? They are not. However, they do hold up better than most. This is the Jones Road eyeliner in Ivy. This is your traditional pencil. So this is like your traditional like drier pencil product. And you can see that this shade is going to be a little bit lighter in color, and it's also has a little bit more brown in the base. Okay, and this is the Hourglass eyeliner in Forest. Let's go ahead and put this at the top. You can see this is a warmer tone green. There's more yellow in this. This is very creamy. Again, this one is going to be a little bit creamier than the Dior as well. And last up, we have the Victoria Beckham in Olive. And this, very, very creamy. You can see there's a little bit more blue. It's a little bit deeper, but they are kind of close. However, the Dior has a little bit more light reflection. Now let's take a look at the waterline pencil. So this is the Chanel Le Cran Colle in Clair. So again, I don't love the formula of these. This is actually kind of dry, which actually works really well though in the waterline. So this does perform well. You can see it's going to be peachier than the Dior. So this performs well in the waterline. I think it might actually perform, in my opinion, it performs a little bit better than the Dior in the waterline. The Dior isn't quite dry enough. It's a little bit waxier. So unless you're starting off with a completely dry base, which for me in my waterline, especially now I still have allergies, that never happens. So yeah, I think the Chanel performs a little better. This is the Victoria Beckham Brightening Waterline Pencil. And I just put that one right there. So you can see that this is going to be peachier than the Dior, but not as peachy as the Chanel. And again, this is going to be a pencil formula as well. So this is not going to be as creamy as the Kohl pencils. It's not as dry as the Chanel. It's a little bit more creamy. However, it's still a little bit more dry than the Dior, but it also, I feel like, is just slightly more effective. And then this is the Chantecaille Brightening Eye Cudgel in Nude. And this is a favorite of mine for the waterline pencils. You can see that the color here is going to be closest to the Dior, but it is a little bit peachier. This is creamy. It's a little bit creamier than the Victoria Beckham, not quite as creamy as the Dior. This doesn't last all day in my waterline, but it does last the majority of the day in my waterline. So the shade of this and the performance of this make this my top favorite at the moment. So I will definitely show you like a long-term wear update on the waterline pencil as well as the eyeliner and the eyeshadows. But I have to say that the waterline pencil, again, it just has a little bit, the texture is a little bit creamier and more waxy. So that it does not stay super well in the waterline. It definitely, you know, some of it will stay, you know, the part that's like touching your lashes essentially, but on the actual waterline where it's wet, that part has already begun like washing off and so forth for me. However, I do want to note that the Dior beige pencil is not actually promoted as a waterline pencil, whereas these other ones that we compared here are promoted specifically for the waterline. This is just promoted as your waterproof kohl eyeliner pencil along with the other colors. So just something to note there. So let me just go ahead and shoot to the demos of these eyeliners. So the eye pencils are made in Germany, and they have, according to the box, 1.4 grams of product. But if you look at the actual pencil, it says 1.2 grams of product. So just something to note. Now, there's no shelf life written anywhere on the pencil or the packaging, but in general, you want to make sure to keep your eyes safe, that you are sharpening these regularly to remove any bacteria and so forth. So, you know, overall, I have to say that they seem to be a nice eyeliner so far, but not necessarily the best in my opinion. And yeah, you know, would I pick up more of these? I would pick up ones that are like unique shades, but I'm not going to go crazy and get like all of my basics and so forth in this particular formula, at least at this time. I'll let you know if with, you know, more where I just fall in love with these. But I think for me, they're more average. I feel like the reformulation of the shadows, they took them from great to average. So I have to say I'm a little bit disappointed. It has been just over 9 hours since I applied the DIOR shadows and eyeliner. So let's take a closer look. All right, here are the shadows. You can see there's no creasing. The eyeliner hasn't smudged. Everything's there. And actually the waterline, it has not migrated since the initial migration. So the actual, you know, edge here still has the product. You can see that here. So after 9 hours, everything has held up well. There's no creasing with the eyeshadows. The eyeliners have both performed well. You know, I'm actually kind of surprised that so much is left on the waterline. So that's pretty impressive. I would have to say I kind of amend my initial thoughts on that one after seeing the wear test. So it's a little bit better than I thought, but still just, you know, I don't know. Like, it's just not a favorite. So let me know what you think down below in the comments, and thanks for watching. I would love to know what your thoughts are on these items, and you know, if you are trying any of these or if you've already picked some up. So definitely share below in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful to see these comparisons here. And again, if you have tried the velvet eyeshadow palettes from DIOR, those are going to be the same as the matte formulas in here. I'm like 99% sure of that. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.